The word hillbilly has a deeper, nobler, and far more American meaning than Hollywood ever gave it. The origin of the hillbillies go back across the ocean to the rugged hills of Scotland and Northern Ireland. The Scotch-Irish, as they were called, were a tough and independent people. They didn't bow easily, not to kings, not to priests, not to anyone but God Almighty. When persecution came, they packed up and came to America looking for freedom.
On the wings of freedom I will soar through the storm and evermore. I hear the thunder, feel the fire. My soul's alive, my heart's desire to fly, to dream, to rise and scream. I am free.
The Beverly Hillbillies was a popular TV show from my youth. Jed Clampett, played by Buddy Ebsen, was the main character. The show's intro song tells us he was a poor mountaineer who barely kept his family fed. Then one day he was shooting at some food, and up from the ground came a bubbling crude. Oil, that is, black gold, Texas tea. Jed was a poor country hillbilly trying to survive. He missed his shot and struck oil. He sold his land for $25 million and moved to a mansion in Beverly Hills. He went from redneck to riches. Jesus' parables of hidden wealth in Matthew 13 reveal something like the situations the Clampetts found themselves in after Jed's miraculous discovery. I'll read a brief one. Matthew 13, verse 44. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and hid. And for joy over it, he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. The apparent difference is that the man in the parable didn't sell his field, he bought it for the treasure. Greetings, patriots. Welcome to God in America, where faith and freedom are the heartbeat of our story. I'm Perry Greene. Now, when I say the word hillbilly, what comes to mind? Maybe dueling banjos, a cabin on a mountainside, or a fella in overalls chewing on a piece of straw. The word hillbilly has a deeper, nobler, and far more American meaning than Hollywood ever gave it. The origin of the hillbillies go back across the ocean to the rugged hills of Scotland and Northern Ireland. The Scotch-Irish, as they were called, were a tough and independent people. They didn't bow easily, not to kings, not to priests, not to anyone but God Almighty. In the 1600s, when the British Crown tried to control their worship through the state church, these folks said, no thank you. They gathered in small, rough-hewn churches, read their Bibles, and sang the Psalms, and preached freedom of conscience. They were mountain people long before they ever saw the Appalachians. When persecution came, they packed up and came to America looking for freedom, not fortune. Many of them settled in the backcountry in Virginia, the Carolinas, Kentucky, and Tennessee. They didn't build mansions, they built cabins. They didn't seek luxury, they sought liberty. And they didn't depend on kings, they relied on God and good neighbors. That same spirit would later light the fires of the American Revolution. When the British threatened their homes, the Scotch-Irish took up arms and met them head on. At Kings Mountain in 1780, a bunch of those hill folk, farmers, preachers, and riflemen, defeated the king's elite troops and turned the tide of the war in the South. Now, somewhere along the way, the name hillbilly stuck. It likely came from Billy Boys, a nickname for the followers of King William or Billy of Orange. These were Protestant fighters in Ireland who refused to submit to the Catholic monarchy. When their descendants came to the New World and kept living in the hills, fiercely independent and faithful to God, people called them hillbillies. What began as an insult became a badge of honor, a mark of stubborn freedom and moral grit. Those mountain folks may not have had much education by worldly standards, but they had what mattered. They had faith in God, love for family, and an unshakable work ethic. They could fix anything, build anything, feed anybody, especially when the government wasn't around to quote unquote help. As one old timer said, we may be poor, but we ain't broke. They were rich in the things that money can't buy: faith, freedom, and fellowship. There's a biblical principle at work in their story. 1 Thessalonians 4, verses 11 and 12, Paul wrote, "Make it your ambition to lead a quiet life, to mind your own business, and to work with your hands so that your daily life may win the respect of outsiders." That's the hillbilly creed. Work hard, live right, love God, and don't depend on a king or a handout. The same values that sustained the Scotch-Irish through persecution built much of early America, especially the character of the frontier. We could learn from those mountain folks. They didn't need government programs to tell them how to live or social media to tell them what to think. They knew who they were and whose they were. They honored freedom because they honored God. They believed, like Psalm 121, verses 1 and 2 say, "I lift up my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth." So maybe hillbilly isn't an insult, but a compliment, a reminder that true freedom starts in the heart and hills, not in the halls of power. Those old Scotch Irish settlers didn't ask permission to worship or live free, and they didn't apologize for it either. They just kept working, praying, and raising their children to know right from wrong. And maybe that's what America needs again: fewer slogans, more substance, less royalty, more righteousness. The hillbilly spirit that carved cabins in the Appalachians also carved out liberty in this land. They were humble before God and they bowed to no king but King Jesus, because the ground is level at the cross. And that's the kind of faith and freedom that built God in America. I'm Perry Greene. Thanks for listening. Please like, share, follow, and subscribe to our podcasts. You can donate to our ministry at godinamerica.com. That's the word God, the letter N, America.com. Until next time, let's keep the light of holy determination burning.
My soul's alive, my heart's desire to fly, to dream, to rise and scream.